We'll get started in 1 minute for anybody that's still out in the hall. 1 minute. CEO Hildebrand, are we still waiting on Director Simpson to join?
Yes, we are, and that should be shortly. You may want to start, he's going to be 30 seconds, so he said to go ahead and start.
All right. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to acknowledge the TNRD that we connect with many First Nations across our vast regional district. And today we're located on the Tk'emlúps-te-Secwépemc territory, situated with the unceded ancestral lands of the Secwépemc Nation. The TNRD appreciates the partnership that we have with the Tk'emlúps-te-Secwépemc and respect the territory and the land on which we gather today. Call for any additions or deletions from the agenda. Seeing none. Just before we start, I will also acknowledge that we have 3 directors online, and there's a 4th that will be joining today. Director Demare, Director Birch-Jones, Director Hopful, and Director Simpson should be here in about 10 seconds, I think, by my timing. If we could move on into the recommendation for the minutes. Moved by Director Middleton, seconded by Director Getz. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. We'll move on into reports 5.1, and I believe we'll hand it over to Corbin. I'm sorry, I don't know your last name, but we'll go Corbin.
Thank you, Chair O'Reilly. It's Kelly for the record. The recommendation before the board today is to approve the amount up to $75,000 for the to allocate, up to $75,000 from the Thompson Regional Hospital District annual operations budget to outsource for preparation and delivery of the advocacy campaign for Kamloops Cancer Center on behalf of the Thompson Regional Hospital Board. The $75,000 is budgeted, $75,000 is budgeted each year to the hospital board for operating expenditures. This is used for physician recruitment efforts and remuneration for the board. Because this campaign would likely be extended out over a 2-year period, the $75,000 budgeted each year will be more than enough to cover the requested $75,000 for the total project. Although $75,000 is budgeted each year, based on the 5-year financial plan, in 2022, only $27,000 was spent on behalf of the Thompson Regional Hospital Board. Staff feels that there's ample room in the 2023-2024 budgets to cover the advocacy campaign's estimated costs of $75,000. Outsourcing would allow for an increase in outcomes that staff would not necessarily be able to do. An outsourced campaign would include the following, including all public relations and devising a public advocacy strategy, campaign volunteer drive, fact sheets, display materials and newsletters, website and social media management specific for this project, community engagement, branding and awareness, and delegations to local governments with campaign drive updates. It's important to note that we should not, as the Thompson Regional Hospital, yourselves as the Thompson Regional Hospital Board and ourselves as staff of the Thompson-Nicola Regional District, should not be the ones driving this campaign. The recommendation as it stands is to have the campaign driven by members of the public. The timeline, as outlined in the report, is 10 months. That was used as a time frame as directed by Chair O'Reilly, as it's the lead up to the next provincial general election. So that's giving us the time frame to work with the province to advocate for a cancer center here in Kamloops. That is all I have for a brief update. I'd be happy to take questions.
Thank you. We'll start with Director Bass.
I'd like to move the recommendation. If it's seconded, I'll speak to it.
Moved by Councillor Bass, second by Councillor Middleton. Discussion.
I'm glad to see this happening. As one of the props that the former premier used to say what he said that really didn't happen. I've harbored some fairly significant anger for several years. As a cancer survivor, I've handled some significant anger for several years. And I think this is a great initiative. I have one question, which is if we're relying on the public to drive it, who will be leading the public? It will not be any of us, including you as chair?
I think the board, specifically, we are part of the public, so we may have some roles in uploading stories or whatever that may be, but certainly we still have a role as the leaders of the hospital board, but it's a community-driven approach. And I'm next on the speakers list, and I'll speak to that a little bit more.
I have a supplementary then, which is
Supplemental.
at what point will we start moving forward with this, assuming it is approved today?
Thank you. I can answer that. I think part of the reasoning for the outsourcing is the capacity of staff, that they didn't have that, and $75,000 wouldn't do much in the meantime. It would be a lengthy process. By outsourcing it, try and get it going as quickly as possible is the hopes that would be. And for my comments, I just want to say, it's been the better part of 28 years that this board has been talking about it, and under the stewardship, and I'll go through the chairs, Chair Christian, Chair Millibar, Chair Danilek, Chair O'Fee, Chair Sharp, Chair Quinn, and Chair Branchflower. And it's been the same approach for 28 years, and we haven't moved the needle. And to the point, there was one line in the report that said about 10 months. And as much as we're talking about our short window that we have a provincial election coming up, that's one component, but that doesn't mean we're going to get it before then. That also doesn't mean we are going to stop the advocacy if we don't get it before the provincial election. Once the framework is done up for a website, and people can be uploading and being a part of this, it's not going to have the ongoing operational costs as the initial startup. But this is something that I would think that it would continue until there's a shovel in the ground. And Manager Kelly, you can certainly chime in, but that's how I understand that this will go.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct in that assumption, Chair O'Reilly. It is the assumption that this is just the initial groundwork that needs to be laid for a public advocacy campaign for a cancer center here in Kamloops.
Thank you. Director Sal.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, do we know, and correct me if I'm wrong, Nanaimo is also looking for advocating for a cancer center, and if so, do we know how much they're spending, and what kind of programs they're having?
It's been interesting as I've been in this role for 10 months now, and learning different ways that different hospital districts are doing things. And Nanaimo actually has an advocacy position funded from the hospital board that's all they do is advocate. What they're looking for in Nanaimo, from my understanding, it's not a new build. It's a very large renovation. And so they're different but the same. But basically that's what's on the table for cancer between now and the provincial election. They're two of the forefront projects that will be decided on. And the hope and the push will be that it will be Kamloops. Thank you. Director Stamer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on this, because I'm just wondering from a taxpayer's perspective, is this the new reality that regardless of how long it's taken for somebody to promise that there's going to be something built in our communities, and trust me, I know how important it is for us to have a cancer center in this community for the entire region, but can you elaborate a little bit more that this is the new reality that we have to hire somebody so that we can get a ground swelling of support to try to push the government along?
Thank you, Mayor Stamer. From my understanding, this isn't just a regional hospital district need now on an advocacy piece, but municipalities across the province are taking that exact same step of having either somebody on staff. If it's not there, it's a key component of their strategic plans that have all just come out this year. That there's an understanding that if you don't have somebody on the ground in Victoria, and really pushing and driving this forward, that you may not get the advantage that other communities are. And certainly the city of Kamloops, in our strategic plan, that's something that we put in, is advocacy as being a key component to that. Yes. Director Blackwell.
Sorry, yeah, no, and I agree with this approach. I think we need to push full steam on this one and use every resource we can. I will be adding my stories to this. I'm a 4-time cancer survivor, 4 independent diagnoses, and I only count the ones where they did surgery to take parts of my body out. This is critically important. I think we cannot let up on this, and I think Mr. Kelly has the right approach here, that we do need to take this on full force now and through past the election with whoever forms the next government.
Thank you, Director Blackwell, or sorry, Director Blackwell just did, Director Beppel and then Director Smith.
Thanks. So this seems like a reasonable approach. But through to Mr. Hildebrand or other staff, the $75,000 that's coming out of the budget, what will we not be doing? Because we don't have the money for something else, or is it coming out of surplus?
CEO Hildebrand.
Thank you to Director Beppel, through Chair O'Reilly. We feel like it is not going to hamper anything we do. The hospital district budget is much different than the regional district budget. And we feel like there's ample opportunity to spend this money if approved.
Thank you, Director Smith. Thank you. Oh, we have somebody online.
Bruce Jones.
Director Birch Jones.
Thank you. Fully support the motion, and from area B around Lillooet and farther afield, it seems sometimes downright cruel for people to be traveling all the way to Kelowna for cancer care. Kamloops would be much, much better. And perhaps if whoever we hire does a really good job with this public campaign, we can put it as a bring forward to have a permanent position for advocacy for our area. Thank you.
Thank you. See no further discussion. I'll call the vote. All in favor? All opposed, if any? That is carried. And we'll move into new business, if any. Oh, Director Randa.
And thank you, Chair. It's on a different topic. I certainly support the establishment of a cancer center in Kamloops. And as you will know, I come from Cache Creek, or I don't really come from Cache Creek, but that's where I live and have for the last 50 years or so. And a good friend of mine in Cache Creek had a heart attack, unfortunately, and we're in an aging population, and he had the heart attack and wound up in the Royal Inland Hospital and received care there. However, he was told he needed to get an angiogram, and that's where they check to see how your arteries are blocked or that sort of thing. But apparently you can't get that done at Royal Inland Hospital. And so he was occupying a bed, like him talking to me. He says, I was occupying a bed at Royal Inland Hospital when we're challenged for healthcare in our region. And that was just in order to wait to send him down to Kelowna to get an angiogram. And he says, why don't we have that service available in Kamloops? And I said, well, I'll ask the question and see if I can find out. So is there any explanation that staff might have about why we can't get an angiogram in Kamloops? I don't think it's a huge piece of equipment that's required. And ultimately what happened during his angiogram, they put a stent in, and I've got pictures of the x-rays, and it's dramatic. The difference, there was an artery going down to feed the right side of his heart with no blood going through it. And they put the stent in during this angiogram, and boom, it's going 100%. And that was the only artery that he had blocked. And the procedure seems to have worked well. He's alive, and he was fighting fire out on Little Shoe Swamp Lake and that sort of thing, which he probably wasn't supposed to do. But, and he took the training beforehand. But I guess my question is, how can we go about encouraging the Royal Inland Hospital or Interior Health or whoever it is to establish an angiogram? We're all getting older. We're all going to start having heart attacks, personally speaking. And you know, it would be nice if you're living in Cache Creek to know that you can get the service in Kamloops rather than having to travel to Kelowna.
Yeah, thank you for those comments, and certainly that's a conversation. But from my understanding, and I've been a little bit involved on that side, is for the Center of Cardio, or essentially what Kelowna has, there needs to be a form of critical mass. And that's why it's revolving around Kelowna at this point. There is a community drive right now in Kamloops that we could certainly put you in contact with the gentleman that's trying to do that. They've raised significant dollars, in the millions, I believe is where they're at, to get that same treatment here. But again, my understanding is that the critical mass we don't have, and that Kelowna is being used as that center. That being said, I believe when the next phase of Royal Inland Hospital is built, which I believe will start the planning under the stewardship of this board, that there may be a room for what is going to be our center of excellence in a new hospital, and how that will play within the provincial puzzle of what they're going to need as well. And so again, that's my understanding on the background of that, but certainly we can put you in contact with the gentleman that's doing the fundraising as well for cardiac in Kamloops.
Great.
Thank you. Director Hamer Jackson.
Yeah, actually, he's quite driven. It's Al Patel that is one of them that owned the Scott's Motor Inn. So, and I do have his contact information for you if you like.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. I don't see anybody online. So I'll ask that we move into a closed meeting in relation to Community Charter Section 92-B. You got a motion? Oh, sorry. CO Hildebrand.
Sorry, just wanted to clarify for those online that it's a different link. So it'll just take a moment to switch over.
Yeah, perfect. Sounds good. So sorry, moved by Director Blackwell, second by Director Getz, and all in favor going to closed. Thank you. That's carried. Back in 5 minutes.